Hey, what's up everyone? Shane here with ROA Off-Road. I'm pretty excited. We're gonna do a special walk around today. It's gonna be a little bit unique and different because we're doing it with, you wanna introduce yourself and tell us who you are?
My name's Vaughan from MDC in Australia and US company.
Yeah, and you're the owner and founder.
Correct.
And how long ago did you start the company officially?
Yeah, so the company started around 19 years ago. However, we've been building tent trailers and overlanding campers for around 17 years now.
Yeah, so lots of experience. As a matter of fact, where would you put yourself in the space of off-road overland in Australia?
Yeah, so in Australia, we're currently the third largest manufacturer of RVs. When it comes to the off-roading sector, is what we call it over there, we're actually the number one per volume.
Yeah, so you guys build more and put more off-road trailers into the Australian outback than any other manufacturer in Australia.
Absolutely.
I'm assuming that you've learned a lot from doing that, right, over the years?
Yeah, and so I guess the purpose of this video is we're going to go around this product here and just look at things that maybe we developed or had made improvements on our product, 15 years ago that may seem insignificant to myself, but being in the US market and being a new product, things that maybe we do a little bit better that really suits the overlanding segment.
Yeah, and I think I come from a unique perspective is because I would say ROA is one of the first dealers to really push and become an exclusive off-road overlanding trailer dealer. There's not a lot of dealers in the US market that focus primarily on off-road overlanding trailers, and being kind of first to market, we've kind of played around with different brands that some of them we don't carry anymore because of quality issues like the Black Series, and that kind of gives me a unique experience because I've had a lot of issues in the last few years with some of those trailers, and I've been talking with you throughout the week because we've been on a week-long adventure, and I'm like, oh yeah, we always had these issues, and kind of like spark this remembrance in your memory where like, oh yeah, I remember having those issues 15 years ago in Australia, but we don't have those issues anymore because we fixed them.
Yeah, sometimes, when you're developing a product, there's things you don't know. You have to go out and use it, take it to the extremes, work it hard to the point of failure, and then work back from there. What can we do to make it stronger? What can we do, things that are smarter to make the product last longer in the wild, so when the customer actually is using the product, they're having a very easy experience.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are wondering, and they keep on asking us the question, what's the difference between MDC and some of the other trailers that are getting imported like Black Series and OBI into the US? Can you kind of share?
Yeah, I guess it's a lot of small things, but also, these sort of products were developed in Australia, and our factory in China is actually exclusive to us, and we actually built the first hybrid in China 4 years before any other company had actually copied our product. So any hybrid that you see in Australia is a copy or a derivative of a product that we built in the end of 2013.
Yeah, and that's including the brands that I mentioned, like the OBI and the Black Series. They really came after you guys had been in the market for, in some instances, a decade and a half, right? And they've kind of are copies.
When you come to do an engineering and FEA analysis, a computer can only take a model so far. You actually have to get the product out on the tracks, and we say, beat the absolute snot out of it. So, you take it to its limits and you try to break things. And then you go, okay, cool, we broke that. How do we actually make that stronger?
Yeah.
And as we go around this van, I will show you some things that are not difficult to do, but it's just having that knowledge of where things could fail and how do you actually strengthen those points.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be relevant to all the lineup of all the caravans or travel trailers that you sell. We just have a 12 in front of us, and we've never showed off this 12 before, so we thought it would bring value to show you a brand new trailer that we've never done a walk around on, but also most of this stuff is going to apply to the whole range, right?
Absolutely.
And one of the things, as I was just chatting with you a lot this week, is there's a lot of stuff that's proprietary that you guys do and nobody else, right? Is that
correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so I guess, when you're a volume player, you can actually develop parts. You have the resources there. Like when we look at our proprietary rims, so this trailer in Australia is rated to 3,000 kilograms. And so there's two wheels holding the whole weight of this particular travel trailer when it's loaded up. So if we take this to, for instance, 7,000 pounds, those rims and tyres have to be rated to 7,000 pounds. Now, a 16-inch aluminium rim off the shelf won't come anywhere near half that, like 3,500 pounds, right?
Yeah.
So we've actually had to go and develop our own rim that's developed in a way that it'll actually hold that weight. We have to do the FEA analysis, all the engineering. You actually have to put more aluminium into the rim, so it becomes more expensive and it becomes heavier, but that's the strength you need. So for instance, some other manufacturers with rims, their rims are only rated to 1,200 kilos. So this actual unit should only weigh, at its maximum, fully loaded, 2,400.
Yeah.
But they're still loading them up to 3,000. So their rims are overloaded. And particularly when you're in an off-road environment, that's when things can start breaking. And so you don't want to be where we are now, which is, you know, a little bit remote, and then have a rim snap in half.
Well,
and not be able to get home.
The reason why we wanted to do this video is because I kept on talking about issues that I've had, right, with other brands. Remember that trailer we took you on, 7 Mile Rim down in Moab?
Yeah.
We actually took all of these trailers. All of these trailers have been down there, and we had some of these single axle ones, the east-west, down there, and no issues whatsoever. The very first time we went up a 7 Mile Rim, we took an HQ12, it's a Black Series hybrid, so it was a lighter trailer overall, and I went up a stair and the whole rim just buckled. And I mean, we have footage of that, and I was just like, bummer, right? And so I was chatting, I'm like, oh man, I'm worried about letting the air out, go slow on these, because I don't want to have a rim bend. And you're kind of like, well, yeah, our rims are proprietary. That's not going to be an issue, right?
No, you won't have that issue with our product because it's engineered to actually carry that weight.
Yeah.
And so in Australia, we would have around 240,000 of these rims out and about.
Yeah.
Same with the tyres. And we've been running those now for around 15 years.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible. And in the last just 5 or 6 years, some of the brands that we've been carrying, that's been one of the biggest issues, is people having rims just bend. And then we pulled off one of the rims on one of these, and we were looking at the weight limit, and it was like 2,400 pounds. And the trailer, so 2 rims, 4,800 pounds. And the trailer, we took it to a scale empty, and it was like 5,500 pounds. So the rims couldn't even carry the trailer empty.
Yeah, because typically a rim off the shelf, right, is built for SUV or a 4x4. They've actually got 4 wheels to distribute the weight. When you're on a travel trailer, particularly these ones, you distribute that weight over 2 wheels instead of 4.
Yeah.
So they've got to be stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's a big deal. And that's, to me, it's the foundation of everything.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? I mean, you've got your family in the towing vehicle and you're towing this behind, and it's the rubber hitting the road. That's what's keeping yourself and your family safe. So you've got the tyres on the road that are connected to the rims, that are connected to the axle, that's keeping this on 2 wheels. If you have one wheel fly off, it can cause some problems.
Since we're talking tires, rims, load range E too, which I've seen a lot of manufacturers putting load range C tires on these, and that was also an issue. So we would have to tell people, hey, we need to swap these out to a load range E. But moving from the tires, you got the tough tracks, the spindle, the hub. Tell us a little bit about what makes the MDC hubs and spindles different from anything else.
Yeah, so a typical bearing coupling together on and you guys call it a spindle, typically you have one large bearing, and normally not that large, and then a smaller bearing. And so the actual, we call it stub axle, you call it spindle, is tapered. At MDC, we actually have our own proprietary stub axle that is parallel bearings. So we actually have 2 very large Timken truck bearings that are rated at 3,000 kilos each on the actual stub. So if you were to disassemble this, the stub axle is actually one thick part.
So it actually doesn't taper.
Doesn't taper at all.
That's
and so that gives it more strength.
Yeah.
Another thing that we do is we have our own proprietary wheel studs. So typically a wheel stud on this particular setup would be 1/2 inch, which is about 12.5 mil. We've actually thickened our wheel studs to 14 mil. So in Australia, that's actually a truck stud, and that's a much stronger stud. So,
Yeah.
you know, everything that we do is we over-engineer it so that it doesn't fail.
Yeah. And how many units have you actually put into the market in Australia?
In
roughly?
Australia, we've done more than 40,000 units over the last 17 years.
So I was pulling up the numbers just a little while ago, and in the last 6 years, I think some of the U.S., I don't even want to call them competitors because they're such a small scale and really don't know what they're doing all the time. But I think Black Series has sold maybe just over 1,000 units. Dwellers, OBIs are like 500. So like the amount of units in the market running down the road, it's so much less. You know, when you get 40,000 units into the market, the consumer, they're going to be telling you if there's issues, right? You're going to be able to go out and find out real fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, part of our quality control is we actually get the feedback from all the customers. So if we actually have a warranty, it's documented. And our engineering team at the end of the month will produce a report for our management team that actually is broken down into, say, electrical component failures, third-party failures, what are the issues? And if there's anything that has any sort of quantity or it's repetitious, you know, we pick that up very quickly. And if it's a third-party manufacturer part, we can go back to them and say, hey, we're having this problem. Can we work together to actually fix that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it's one of our components or our factory that we work with overseas, you know, we work with them directly on how to fix those things. Because at the end of the day, we want less problems for our customers, which gives them a good experience, which means there's less headaches for us and our team, less headaches for ROA, and, you know, a better reputation in the market. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, you know, I was talking to you about, you know, just coming into the US market, because you guys are relatively new and not as well known yet, because you're the third largest manufacturer in Australia, but here you're kind of new, right? And I was trying to say, well, how did you have such a big market share in Australia? And you said, you know, a lot of it's just referral, right? Neighbors, friends. And that only happens when you're building a good product where everybody's referring your product. And you know, if people are getting your trailers and having bad experiences, they're not going out and telling people about their great trailer, right? So I think that's so powerful.
Yeah, and I think when you're selling items at a big ticket, like these things aren't cheap, right? People are saving up for a long time to be able to purchase these products. You only get one chance, and particularly moving into the US, it's very important for us that we give all our customers a very good experience. We know that we've already got a quality product, but we've also got to back that up with service, and that's why we partner with companies like yourselves, because you're renowned for, you know, giving your customers a good experience. If they have a problem, hey, how can I fix that quickly? You can bring it back to our workshop, we'll sort that out for you, we'll get you back on the road.
Yeah.
And that's what we need as a new brand coming into the US.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. And we've definitely synced up in a lot of ways, I feel like, and have a similar mentality and a way of thinking where, you know, customers are always the most important focus, right? To make sure you're doing them right, because they're the only reason why you're in business, right?
Yeah.
Sam Walton, Walmart, right? He said, the customer is the CEO. They can fire you at any time by walking out the doors. If you don't give them a good experience, they go somewhere else. So
Yeah.
I think that's powerful. Now back to the trailer a little bit. I want to talk about your steps.
Yes.
Tell me, why not an electric motor? Because some of these new shiny trailers, they put electric motors on them. Have you guys ever played around with that a little bit?
We have looked at it, but your problem is, you know, these are overlanding trailers where you're going to drag them through rivers, right?
Yeah.
Now, water and electric motors just doesn't work. Now,
Obviously.
a manual mechanism, yeah, you're going to have to bend over and pull it out, but it's not that hard.
No, it's not.
If you have a motor there that's full of water and doesn't operate, and you can't physically open up your step, we think that's a bigger issue.
I do too. And some of the trailers that were getting imported, at first they were manual, and it was nice. We pulled them out, put them in, and didn't have any issues. And then they started sending them out with motors. And a lot of people were like, oh, that's cool. You press a button and it opens up. And then guess what? They go off-roading. Besides water, dirt, grime.
Yeah.
They get stuck into the motors, the gears. I would say, without a doubt, one of the biggest warranty items that we had within a few months across most of the trailers were these electric motors. Whether it was water or dirt, they were always getting gunked up and not going out, and it just became a pain. And I was kind of like, got to just go back to manual steps. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, and sometimes simple things are better.
Yeah.
You know, and electric awning, it's out of the dust, it's out of the water, it's not going to have that problem, right?
Yeah.
It's up high.
Well,
It's different down here. When you're going along the dirt tracks, right, you're just kicking up dirt straight into it,
yeah,
off the back of your tyre.
right into the motor.
Yeah. And another reason we also don't use the electric motors is the mechanism for the actual step is a little bit higher, and so the step actually hangs lower to the ground, and it's more likely when you're going over obstacles to actually collect something and actually smash your step and make it non-functional. These manual steps actually fold up a lot tighter.
Yeah. If you're brand new to the channel, welcome. If you've been here a bunch, you will see the number one thing we knock off is steps, right? And most of them, those electric steps are always the first ones to go. So 100%. Labeling, you got labels on everything. I've noticed like a lot of trailers don't have much labeling on anything. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I guess it's education and sharing what we know. And people don't read manuals, right? I'm guilty of it, we all are.
Yeah.
We try and build things without understanding how they work or how they should be put together. It's a visual thing that, you know, while you're there you can read it, and reminds people how to use their travel trailer safely and things that you need to do.
Yeah, it's
You know,
simple.
for instance, tightening up wheel nuts. Our wheel nuts, because they're proprietary, have to be tightened up to 103.5 foot-pounds. And so we have a label on the actual front of the trailer that shows the customer what's the best way to actually tighten up those wheel nuts, because you don't go around in a direction like this, you got to do them opposite. So you always tighten your wheel nuts, go to the opposite lug.
Yeah, like a
And that's
star pattern
important.
almost, right?
Yeah, because the lugs are centric. They actually, you know, mount your rim to the face of your drum, and you want that to be even. So it's important you tighten those up in sequence. And, you know, putting all that information in a trailer makes it front and center. It also protects us as the manufacturer.
Oh yeah, we should show them that. It's because it teaches you how to tighten your lugs. So you go to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6, and you just keep on doing that until it sets properly against the drum, like Vaughan was saying. I was just on a safari and the guy's wheel starts wobbling like in the middle of the thing, and he gets out there and with a tire and iron and just does a circle, and I get out there and I'm watching. I'm like, well, there's a reason why it's wobbling. It's because you keep on doing it wrong, right?
Yeah.
You gotta
Tighten it up on an angle.
I love that. I've only seen that on a couple trailers ever. Most trailers don't even do anything like that. So that's very cool. So tell me, I'm seeing markings on every single bolt.
So basically what it is, when it comes through our assembly factory in the US, our team goes over all the nuts and bolts and torques them up. And depending on the size of the nut and bolt and where it's located, there's different torques. And then basically the mark means that that's actually been torqued. So when it goes through the QC process, the QC officer can look at it and go, yeah, that's been done. Now let's have a look at these markings here, right? So this is a safety chain. In the US, there's actually no standard for these particular chains, but in Australia, it's very strict standard. And this chain's actually rated to 4177-35. And so that means 3,500 kilos, that chain's rated to.
Oh, wow.
And this trailer will only ever weigh 3,000 fully loaded. So this chain, should this vehicle become separated from your tow vehicle, you can guarantee that this chain would never snap.
Well, and you got 2 of them that are.
Yeah, and that's the
These are-
safety factor.
These are the most massive chains on any trailer too. It's like these things you could do some CrossFit with.
Yeah.
I always say you can work out with these if you want to.
And so when you look at these bolts, right, we don't just put any bolt. This is should this become separated from the vehicle, it's a safety chain. Your bolt actually has to be meter standard as well. So in Australia, we need a tensile strength of 8.8, and you can see that on the bolt. Now, when it comes to hitches, a hitch is another very important component that connects your travel trailer to your tow vehicle. The bolts on here are actually 10.9 high tensile strength, so they're much more higher grade than these, but that's what's necessary for the hitch. And that's recommended by the hitch manufacturer.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can slap in a bolt that might be 4.8, that's 3 times less the strength, and you know, you risk that something happens crazy, you run into a tree or something and it separates.
It's
all about safety factors.
I don't want to be too mean and throw anybody under the bus, but I can promise you that I've seen a lot lesser bolts put on things on other trailers, not these ones. This is the thing that I just want to get across, and that's why I thought it was so important to get you on camera so you could explain some of these technical things that a lot of people just don't quite understand, but it's so important for the safety of the van. And that's something that, it's just a theme that I feel like I'm always hearing come out of you, like, you know, safety. It's paramount.
Yeah, it's always safety, compliance.
Yeah.
Meeting the relevant standards.
Yeah.
Even if there isn't a standard in the US, we adopt the Australian standard because we know over there the products don't fail. And so we bring that across here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible. I talk to people quite a bit about galvanization. Can you kind of go into detail a little bit about the frame, why you feel confident about, how long do you say you give a warranty, 6 months or a year?
We give a lifetime warranty on the chassis and drawbar.
Okay, lifetime, that's not
Lifetime.
6 months to a year.
Yeah. So, you know, in Australia we need to meet certain standards for off-road. It has to be built 5 times the Australian standard for a normal trailer. And it's not easy to do, but if you have engineers that understand how trailer chassis should be built and the forces that are exerted on a trailer chassis while you're towing, it's actually not too hard. But, you know, what it is, it's FEA analysis, so that's a computer that's basically analysing the frame and the different forces depending on how strong you need to make the chassis. So this chassis would be rated to 3,000 kilos. We have chassis that are rated to 3,500 kilos that have twin axles. And so the main pressure point on a chassis is where the suspension actually meets the chassis. That's where all the pressure is, because obviously you've got the weight of this thing on the wheels, and where that connects to the chassis is where all the pressure is. So depending on single axle or dual axle, those pressures can be spread further along the chassis or less. So depending on what particular model you're making, you have to think about your grades of steel, your thicknesses of your steel, the RHS, the actual width and the height, and all that comes into together when you build your chassis. So, you know, we've been building these chassis now for 17 years, so we're experts in the field. When we develop a new model, the chassis is actually the first thing we develop, and we do the FEA. Before we do anything else, the chassis is the first step. Now, all our chassis are hot dip galvanized, so that is a hot dip bath. The chassis is all welded up and it's put into a bath of molten galvanizing zinc. And so basically what that does is it puts a protective coating on the inside and the outside of the chassis. If you actually look at our chassis very closely, you'll see these little triangular notches throughout the whole chassis. And what that does is when you actually pull the chassis out of the hot dip bath, it allows all the extra zinc to actually leak out from the inside.
Yeah.
Because you want to be able to get that molten zinc out, otherwise your chassis is going to weigh an extra 200, 300 pounds if you're actually just leaving that material on the inside.
Okay, that makes sense. I've seen a bunch of galvanized chassis. They're very smooth. They almost look like aluminum, which is kind of different from what I've seen before. You were talking a little bit about the process of how you guys do that.
Yeah, and so typically, right, a galvanized bath is about half the size of an Olympic pool, and it's just full of hot zinc.
Yeah.
And we're not the exclusive user of that particular pool. There's other companies, anyone that's galvanizing things like light poles, RHS steel, anything that's galvanized, they all share the same pool. But what we ask our galvanizing factory to do is, before they actually hot dip our chassis, we ask them to clean the pool. So what that does is called a scrape. They scrape all the impurities off the top of the pool, and obviously that takes some of the galvanizing with it, and that costs money. But what do we get from that? We get a very clean finish. You know, people are spending a lot of money on these trailers. We want the chassis to look amazing. And so when you see other galvanized products, what it is impurities in the pool. And we just don't like doing that.
No, it's we've had some campers, even the ones that galvanize, because the impurities look so ugly, they'll like spray paint it. And generally you don't paint galvanized because it peels off easily.
Well, typically they'll tell you they spray paint it. They actually sand it back and then they spray paint it. So you're actually taking the galvanizing finish off and then putting a spray paint on. So you may as well have just spray painted your chassis
from
instead of galvanizing it.
I didn't realize that. And they start flaking, and like the paint starts coming off like within the first 6 months to a year. And then people are upset about their warranty, their brand new trailer flaking, right?
Yeah, and then it's going to corrode over time.
Yeah, for sure. So that's very cool. We did say this is going to be a walk around, and we just talk about things as we go. So up here, this is our LP box, is that right?
Yes.
This looks a little bit different from some of the other vans that we have. Falls down, which is pretty cool. And that's two 20-pounders, total 40 pounds.
All the accessories we use in this van is for the US market. So anything that has a US standard, you know, there's different rules.
Yeah.
We'll use the products for that particular standard. So we're not bringing the Australian stuff here. Gas is a serious thing, and, you know, electricity. So in Australia, we use 240 volt. Over here, you use 120.
Yeah.
And so our suppliers of the electrical systems, we use different suppliers in Australia to what we do in the US.
Yeah.
But something different that you notice about this gas box, say compared to a sealed box, what do you see?
I mean, it's ventilated. Is that
Exactly.
what you're... Yeah.
Is that normal in the US?
Quite frankly, they don't even put them in nice boxes in the US. They put a piece of plastic over it.
Yeah, so the reason we have a box first and foremost, right, is this is an overlanding trailer. You're going to be tearing down dirt tracks. If you look at the ground here, there's rocks and stuff. You're going to be flicking that up
And hit.
into your trailer.
Yeah.
So you need your gas bottles protected, right? You don't want rocks flying into this, in the gas. Now, ventilation. The reason we have ventilation in Australia, there's standards where should this gas bottle, for some reason, be left on and it leaks gas, it's not allowed to build up inside the box. We actually have to have ventilation, and that the gas would actually dissipate because gas flows to the ground.
Yeah.
And it actually flows away from the trailer where there's no electrical components. Because if you have a gas leak and you have electricity, you can have a spark,
Yeah.
you can have an explosion.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So some manufacturers that don't know what they're doing or some customers will start packing or doing electrical mods inside a gas box, which really doesn't make sense.
Yeah. That does.
So we actually have done like a computational fluid analysis that it was a computer model that if this gas bottle was left on and it completely flowed out, where would the gas actually go and how long would it take and what's the chances of it exploding? That's the reason why we have the grill in the bottom. Yes, your gas bottle is going to get dirty with dirt, but it's a safer way of doing things.
Yeah, it's better safety than anything else. It's interesting is because I'm just thinking about a lot of these trailers that there are called off-road. They don't actually do anything. They put just a plastic cover over them. And the reality is your issue with a propane tank being open, maybe a rock won't bust that, but a rock is going to bump up and hit one of these plastic or rubber hoses, and that's going to create a gas leak pretty easily.
Yeah.
So that's pretty incredible. And then also these rubber gaskets on these tanks, that's not common. Usually it's just metal on metal.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable about that, right? Because you're tearing down the road at, I don't know, maybe 50 miles per hour off-road.
Yeah.
This thing, everything's moving around. If you imagine metal on metal, over time, that could actually put a hole in the side of your tank. That's not real cool.
No, it's not.
So, I mean, it's not hard to put a bit of rubber there so you've got rubber on steel and you don't have to worry about that happening.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's crazy. I think there's so much detail that goes into building these that we could make this a 10-hour long video, you think?
Yeah.
But since we are on the subject of safety, I know that it's becoming a standard feature to have your trailer. And why did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so what that's all about is stability. So, you know, some drivers have more experience than others. If you get into a situation like someone pulls out in front of you and you need to swerve very quickly to avoid them, you don't want to get sway in your trailer. So what the sway controller does, it actually will operate the brakes to take away any sway.
Yeah.
Or if you're going down a hill very quickly, and maybe you're driving a lighter vehicle and you start getting, we say, the tail wagging the dog, or a bit of waddle, that system will actually take the wattle out. So it's a safety system for towing for either inexperienced towers that may get themselves into trouble, or if you really have to avoid some sort of obstacle, like a deer jumps out in front of you and you're swerving.
Yeah.
Once you avoid that obstacle, you don't want the trailer bringing that vehicle unstuck with sudden movement. So that just takes that all away.
We've got a lot of stuff going on here. VM Pro, Life Pro Plus. You want to tell us a little bit about the electrical systems, the battery especially?
Yeah, so Life Pro Plus is our lithium battery. They come in 200 amp hour or 300 amp hour. We haven't released the 300s into the US yet, but they'll be coming shortly. You know, they've got all the safety protections on them, shorts, overcharging. They have a BMS inside, you know, to make sure that they're safe.
We were at a show last time you were here, or I think 2 times ago, and I saw some batteries and they were big, massive, big amp batteries, and I was like, why don't you just switch out and like put those ones in? And you were like, that'd take us a long time because you guys do a lot of testing.
Yes. Yeah, so when we take on a serious product like a lithium battery, it has to meet all US standards, UL, CSA. And so it's very important to us that we use products that are safe. And when you meet that standard as a company, it takes quite a lot of investment. You need to know what you're doing. So an important thing, if you are putting lithium batteries in your RV, make sure they meet the UL or CSA standards. They should actually have a picture of the actual standard and actually a certificate number, which you can actually look at online.
This is really important because it wasn't one of our customers, it was on a Facebook group. And you know, sometimes these batteries are expensive. You know, you can spend a lot of change on a battery, $1,000. And Amazon sells these batteries for a couple $100. And this guy bought one of these cheap, but it wasn't UL, didn't have any of the certifications. He just bought it and thought, hey, I'm gonna save $1. Instead of $1,000 for a battery or $2,000, he spent a couple $100 and bought a few batteries, and his trailer actually caught on fire. It was all over the Facebook group, and they found out that it was actually from the battery that caught on fire. So that's super, super important. And it's surprising that some of these small mom and pop shops, you gotta be careful. You know, you can throw any battery and it doesn't have the ratings or the UL certificates, and you gotta stick with a reputable battery that's gone through all of its testing requirements.
Yeah, absolutely right. So, you know, that's a pretty sad event. Imagine if the person's family was actually sleeping in that caravan when it caught on fire. That would be catastrophic.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes things that are cheap, there's a reason why they're cheap.
Yeah.
And we've all seen on Facebook, you know, the lithium batteries with the little cement blocks inside of them, right?
Yeah.
That's not cool. Just to give them some weight. The battery's this big, but there's only this much battery inside.
Okay, so behind door number 1, these are vents.
Yes,
right?
vents for a fridge slide.
Okay, and so tell us about these doors, because these are some premium doors. Do you guys order these from somebody, or? We
actually make these in our factory.
Yeah.
So they're proprietary. If you have a look at the composite panel here, this composite panel is actually a cutout from this.
Okay.
So this is all laser cut, and then this part is actually kept for the inside of the door.
Okay.
So you've got the triple seal, you've got a seal here, seal here, seal here, but you've also got the cam lock. So basically when you put this together, it pulls all the seals in, and that keeps dust seal. So if you look at this, right, we've been driving down these dirt tracks, no dirt.
Yeah, this is like spotless.
Yeah. This door is
amazing.
So let's talk about fridge slides. Fridge slide, we have multiple locks. Basically, you're tearing down the road, overlanding, things are jumping around. We have a double locking system here for this particular fridge slide. A big bolt lock here, and then this lock to bring it out. So the second bolt, that's just to make sure nothing comes undone. When that's actually engaged, this thing can't go anywhere, so there's no movement.
Oh yeah, that thing is unbelievably robust.
Something simple,
yeah,
but very effective.
Oh yeah, I've seen a lot of trailer manufacturers, they'll just go with this. But the issue with these is sometimes they don't engage lock all the way, right? And you think it's engaged, but you gotta make sure you push it and you feel it click. But I've done that where we've shut them up and you thought it was locked, and then all of a sudden you open the compartment door and it's put a hole through the compartment door. You engage that, the fridge is not going anywhere. And it looks, from what I understand, up to a 95 liter. Fits really nicely in here. And these tracks, I wish people could see it in person and touch it and feel it, because it feels so robust. This whole entire bracket is just unbelievably like thick, and the gauge, I don't know what that is, almost looks like 1/8 inch. Is this steel or aluminum?
That'd be steel, powder coated. So anything for overlanding has to be over-engineered.
Yeah.
You know, it has to be strong because it's getting treated rough. Simple thing also is lighting in your cabinets. When you're trying to go through things at night and you don't have a light in here and you're trying to open and close things holding a flashlight in your mouth, is not real cool. So lighting there. Another thing too is cigarette lighter outlet for your fridge or an Anderson plug, right? So when you're going down the road overlanding, you know, these are renowned for coming undone. Get to your campsite and your beer is hot. There is nothing worse. So, Anderson plug. Everyone's very familiar with those. We give both options, and that's a very secure connection that will never come undone.
Yeah, those Anderson plugs are amazing. Now, one of the things that I really like and I appreciate, it feels like so many manufacturers, they're more assemblers than they are builders,
Yes.
right? They kind of like just order things from a catalog.
Yeah.
And then they get it and they kind of just put it together, right? The issue with that is ultimately, you know, if you're ordering stuff from somebody else, you don't really know what their quality is like,
Yeah,
right?
you're relying on third parties. So, you know, everything that you see here is actually made in our factory. All this here. So this, we don't make the aluminium, but we cut the aluminium, the diamond plate, and it's powder coated in our factory.
Yeah,
The framing for this door is bent in our factory.
yeah,
You know, everything is assembled. These lights here, we don't actually make those because you can't make anything, but you know, that's a couple of dollar part. All the important things we do in our factory is we source the steel, we source the aluminium, we bend it, we weld it, we paint it, we powder coat it, we assemble it, all in our factory. So we control the process from go to woe and all the raw materials.
Go to woe, what is that?
Go to woe means start to finish.
Start to finish. There you go, I like that. So yeah, start to finish, go to woe. You really are controlling it. And you know, I was just thinking to myself, like, if I have a door issue, if I have a door that busts or breaks, which happens, generally the biggest door provider is Lippert. So like, I can't even really call my manufacturer and say, hey, give me a door. They're pretty much saying, okay, sounds good. Then they're calling Lippert and saying, get me a door. And it's kind of like a chain, you know, it's like telephone. You ever play that game, how the message changes? By the time it goes to multiple people, somebody drops a ball.
Yeah.
Ultimately, things get dropped and you got to call back. Did you get that door? Oh, let me call them again. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? This is really cool because the reality is, if I have an issue with the door, I got only one person to call,
Exactly.
you.
Yeah.
Because you guys are making the doors. I'm like connecting dots here, and I'm realizing, because we've had to order doors in the past, and it's like, it's a pain in the butt sometimes. I mean, any type of third party, you know, if you're using Dometic, Norcold, any great brands, you still have to work up the chain. But some of this stuff you don't. So once again, proprietary, you guys build it. This thing right here.
Yeah, and I mean, we're in control of sourcing the raw materials. We're in in control of the manufacturing, so we keep it all in house. If there are issues, we can address them very quickly.
Yeah.
But we did that 15 years ago, and over time, you learn how to do things better.
Yeah. What about your steel?
Yes, so there's different grades of steel. We use a higher grade, so in our chassis we use Q465.
Yeah.
Many other manufacturers use Q345, which is a grade down. Yes, it's cheaper to buy, it's not as strong. It looks the same, but it's not the same quality. So we do offer a lifetime warranty on our chassis, and that's why we use a more expensive, stronger steel as a base.
Yeah, and you were saying your engineers get all the certificates.
Yeah,
From
part of our QC process is whenever we do any sourcing, we're getting the third-party specification certificates from the suppliers that basically verify that that grade steel is what we're actually buying.
That's really cool. That's incredible. And I mean, if you're paying more for it, you want to make sure you're getting the right stuff.
Yeah. So this is our stainless steel kitchen. That is completely made in our factory. And you have a look at the strength of the hinge here and how we weld it.
Oh yeah,
TIG weld it.
you've TIG welded the whole thing, and it's a piano hinge too.
Makes it strong. We've also got the bolt. Again, to secure this while you're off-road.
This is thicker than 1/8. This has to be thicker than 1/8 inch. And this bolt is just, it's so robust. You can't always see it in a video, but when you come and actually are playing with this thing, you can feel how strong it is, and it goes into this track. And I've seen, imagine cutting this off, you know, and having just an L bracket and then a hole right there, and it only goes back this far. When we dropped it in, it was bending.
So components are going to fail at their weakest point. So, you know, the latch bolt itself has to be strong, all the components of latch bolt. These screws here have to be strong. There has to be a strong base to actually screw down to. This connecting channel has to be strong, because if you have one weak component, that's where it will fail.
Yeah.
Everything has to be over-engineered.
Yeah. So now I'm gonna pull this thing out. It's funny, like you just know you guys have been doing this longer than anyone else because of silly things like a spot to put this with a little plate.
I'm not as flexible as I used to be, and so I can't actually get in underneath there and find a spot for it. But if there's a big hole, I can find it with my finger, put it in.
It's simple, but they're the little things that count, right? Like at the end of the day, like I've had other trailers, and instead of a spot for it and a plate, they have like a little tab with a U bracket, and you're trying to like find a spot to put it. And this actually has a track, and then sometimes they have those little butterfly wing nuts, so you got to have a Leatherman to tighten it as well.
And also, I mean, just the size of this, like the first one that we ever did was about half the size, and you couldn't actually get enough torque on it with your fingers.
Yeah.
So when you actually go to a bigger one, you can actually get your hand around it like this to torque it up.
Yeah.
Rather than just two fingers, so it makes for a stronger connection.
Yeah.
You don't want to have all your pots and pans on here cooking and then suddenly have this
drop down.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Now, something else you do, tell me when this strap came about.
Well, there's actually two things, right?
Well, yeah.
So this is actually made of stainless steel. We have these little rubber stoppers here, right? So this stainless steel kitchen, it's very expensive to make, and stainless steel can actually scratch, particularly when you've got vibrations on a track. So if you imagine you're going down a track and this is, you don't want that. And you don't want metal on metal.
Yeah.
So you've got the little rubber grommets here, and then you've got the little tie down bungee rope.
So since
Very
you're the
limited.
founder, you've seen all of this progression.
Yeah.
At one point, I'm sure you had some metal on metal and realized real fast that's a dumb idea.
Oh, absolutely. And how do we fix that?
Yeah.
And so this actual bit here, we actually make that in our factory as well. So we've had to actually go out and make that component.
Yeah.
We couldn't actually buy the correct size, and so we had to go out and make it.
I've never seen that. I've never seen this on any other kitchen. And believe it or not, they're just little details that make the owner experience better.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the quality of stainless steel, this is actually a marine grade stainless.
Okay.
You can buy inferior grades, but it'll be a different composite type metal that could rust over time.
Yeah.
So you do get some stainless steels lesser grade that can rust.
I've actually seen it now that you mention it. And I was so shocked because I was like, that's stainless steel. How is it rusting? Just everything about the kitchen. I love this like little detail of having a, what do you call that? A dry rack?
Yeah, or a condiment holder, like you put your spices, your sauces, barbecue utensils. Like it's just a handy spot.
Yeah.
Just to put stuff, get it out of the way, create some more bench space.
And you have a wind guard there, and then of course the wind guard here. Yep. Okay, tell me about Thetford.
Thetford, we've been working with them in Australia for the last 17 years. We have quite a good relationship. You know, we have in Australia volume production, so we do buy quite a lot of gear off them. This particular stove, unique to Thetford, we've actually bought the exclusive rights to this stove in the US. So we don't actually use this stove in Australia because our propane is a little bit different to yours. And so there's different standards, different size jets. But we were lucky enough to secure the rights to this, obviously, off your team's experience and what you know about the US market. These burners actually are a lot bigger than what's currently available.
Yeah.
And us Australians, we like eating a lot of steak, and so we need to be able to cook thick steaks on this.
Oh yeah.
And so that's important to us that we have a good quality product, and when we had the opportunity to keep this alive, we did.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I've used dozens of different stovetops, and this is without a doubt the best stovetop. Where's Theffort's headquartered out?
Yeah, so this product's actually made in the UK.
Okay.
And it's shipped to our factory in China where it's installed.
Okay. That is super cool. So just a reputable, good company. They do a bunch of the other components too inside the trailer.
Yeah, so you've got toilets. They also do the fridges.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're a worldwide company.
Yeah, yeah.
And we use their products exclusively in Australia.
Yeah, they're really
as well.
Yeah, the fridges have been phenomenal too. We got our freezer, we got our popsicles. They work. They just work really good. I haven't had any issues. And of course, you have hot and cold, and most of the units are plumbed. This one you hook up pretty quickly, but that is also a very cool feature. You don't see a lot of the units actually plumbing their units directly to the sink, which is nice.
Yeah, and this particular stove, it's electric ignition, which is very cool.
Yeah, so you just press a button, no striker needed.
Yep.
Okay, so moving back here, this was a conversation that you and I had just recently, and the reason why is because while we've been on this trip, I have found 2 D-shackles.
On the tracks.
Laying on the ground.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, you guys put some cotter pins through these things.
Yeah, so I can tell you a reason, right? When you put a nut and a bolt together, these things, when they're rattling around on tracks, right, there's several ways you could actually make this never come off. You could actually use Loctite inside, but if you're on a track and you need to disassemble this, Loctite's not very functional, right?
No.
It's locked in. So another way of doing it is actually putting another secondary fastening device on the end outside of the actual retaining nut, so that this nut it'd be impossible for it to actually come off. And we do that with the cotter pin through the bolt.
Yeah.
Something very simple, but you know, this will never come off no matter how much it rattles.
When we were carrying Black Series, you also have one of these shackles that holds the limiting chains on the suspension.
Yes.
And then they had 2 of these, but they would show up to our showroom, brand spanking new, missing all the time.
Yeah, because they're just a normal D-shackle, so there's no secondary fastening device.
Yeah.
Basically, you twist it up with your fingers and hope for the best.
I'm thinking about this flying off on a freeway.
Yeah, or for some reason you've driven somewhere where you can't turn around easily and someone has to drag you backwards and you go to hook up and that's not there. That's going to be a big problem.
Yeah, it'd be a little
Exactly
annoying.
when you need it.
We ended up buying these in bulk because almost every trailer that showed up to our showroom, at least one of them was missing, either on the suspension or back here. So they were just falling off down the highway, and they ended up zip tying them. But I mean, like...
Yeah, a zip tie is not very functional, right? Because you're flying up rocks off your tyres into something plastic that's actually sitting against metal. Over time, that zip tie is just going to snap off.
Yeah, or rod off.
Yeah.
You know. You only need it when you need it,
Or
and you never know when it is. It could be 5 years down the road.
Or the zip tie's there and you don't actually, you have to remove this and you don't have something to cut the zip tie off. That could be a problem.
Another issue that we had over the years carrying some of these trailers, these rear tire carriers are really cool looking. We had some actually snapping and breaking off. Did that happen a lot in Australia? I mean, you got 40,000 trailers driving down the outback, washboards.
Yeah, it doesn't, not for us. We figured this one out 17 years ago. So, you know, like anything, when you're building an overlanding trailer, you're thinking about how you can engineer things to be tough and strong. And you have to consider vibration. So how many pounds would this tire and wheel weigh, do you think?
Oh man, what do you think, 150 pounds?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, so that's just hanging off the back, right?
Yeah.
And you're going down the road and that's, you know, you've got vibrations.
Yeah.
So your actual carrier has to be reinforced. It has to have gussets. It has to be made of a specific grade steel that is strong, that won't break. It has to be welded correctly. Like, there's a lot of things that go into play to make this strong so it actually doesn't fall off.
Believe it or not, this actually doesn't really move that much. It's actually really tight.
Yeah.
So we should head on inside. We're giving a lot of detail about this, and I think it would be cool to show off the inside.
Righto, let's do it. How comfy is this?
This is actually really
I
comfortable.
could actually just sit here all day.
Oh yeah, and we're not the smallest people, you know, and we fit nicely at this booth. I mean, this is a comfortable booth. You could put another person next to you.
Absolutely, we could play cards here.
Oh yeah, this is a nice size table.
Or have dinner.
Yeah, for sure. We got a TV over here. We got a nice bed. So this is like an RV queen. I measured it.
Yep.
So it's 80 long and just a few inches shy of 60. So pretty comfy in here. Tell me about the evolution of the quality of inside these caravans that you've gone through.
Yeah, like anything, right? We're building for vibration, overlanding. We're not going down sealed roads. Things are always vibrating, so we need to think about how do we do the construction to make sure things don't fall to bits. I mean, you look at these locks here, right? Some people will go, oh, these locks are a pain. You actually have to push them out and then twist them to open them. But the reason we do that is because they're a very secure lock. So when you're traveling down the road and you've got all your tins of beans and whatever else in here, it's got a second locking mechanism, same as what we do on the D-shackles out the back.
Yeah.
It's impossible for this to open.
Yeah.
Last thing you want is to have tins or stuff in here. This opens up when you're on a track, and then you've got tins rattling around on top of your, you know, your benches, whatever, scratching things up. A tin falling from here into your floor is going to cut your floor.
I had a cupboard open and I had a jar of pickles in there, big one.
All glass.
Glass.
Yuck.
Fell down, shattered, and oozed everywhere. Like all the pickle juice, the glass, right? And the entire trip, we smelled pickle juice everywhere, you know?
Yeah, so all the high-end travel trailers in Australia, you know, upwards of 150 grand plus, actually use these locks.
Isn't that interesting?
These things are not cheap.
Yeah, those are very nice. And the cabinetry in here is beautiful. I love styling.
It's all about aesthetics. And so these actual cabinet panels, the wood is a Falcata ply. It's actually grown in Malaysia. We import it into our factory as a raw plank. All the cabinetry is CNC milled, and the edge banding is put on in our factory. So our edge banding machine, like, it is about 50 foot long. So the edge banding is this material here, and then this here is a 1mm PVC facade.
Yeah.
It's actually glued on.
Yeah.
And so it's a lightweight, strong wood, which is around 16mm thick.
Yeah.
And so in other RVs, you may see these panels a little bit thinner, but we need something that's rigid and strong because of the overlanding aspect of what we do.
Well, and so a couple questions about this. The Falcata, I think I read about it, and it's used throughout even residential homes in Australia.
Yes.
It's a nice wood, and it's they use it because it's much lighter.
Yeah, another thing to talk about as well is the actual glue that we use.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, so the glue on the edge banding is a high temperature polyurethane.
Yeah.
And so basically the glue that's used in a housing environment, because you don't see extreme temperatures, actually goes soft at a lower temperature. Our glue starts to melt at 320 degrees Fahrenheit. Now the reason we use that glue, if you're camping in an arid environment, you're out in, you know, the back of Arizona and it's 120 degrees outside, it might be 180 degrees inside.
Yeah.
If you have a low temperature glue, the glue will start melting and the edges of your edge banding and your cabinetry will start falling apart, which the customers don't really enjoy. Now, if you're only new to making RVs and you don't understand that technology, you could easily fall into that trap.
I'm guessing polyurethane glue at that heat temperatures cost a little bit more money.
Yeah, it's more cost, absolutely, and it's more difficult to work with, but that's what you need in an RV. Otherwise, you'll have delamination.
Yeah.
And that's not much fun for anyone.
Yeah, no, it's not. We're very familiar with delamination from some other brands in the past. It was just a nightmare. And it's unfortunate, and sometimes I think to myself, maybe, you know, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, you know, they just didn't know, you know, because they're new. But guess what? When you're an owner and you just went out and bought a brand new trailer and all your cabinets are delaminating, that's frustrating, right? Frustrating for the dealer, it's frustrating for the owner. And to me, I think that's what I'm so excited about working with you guys. And it's 17 to 20 years of being in business.
Yeah.
It changes the entire experience for everyone, for the end user and for the dealer and all the way through. Even you, it changes it for you, right? You don't get angry people calling you up telling you,
Makes our life easy.
Right?
And better referrals, more sales. Makes it good for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. That's incredible. Believe it or not, there's a lot of trailers that I don't see that actually caulks the edges of the cabinetry. If you look down at the floor, you can see there's nice caulking lines. I'm not sure I've ever seen anybody do it more than you guys. What's the thought behind that?
First thing, it's attention to detail. Second thing is aesthetics. Third thing, it's another way of fixing componentry. So it's another way of bonding things together. So yes, there are screws in the walls into the cabinetry, but it's another form of bonding that just makes things stronger. You know, as these things go down the road, you know, they're moved, there's forces being exerted. People are using these a lot tougher than your standard RV.
Yeah.
So everything just has to be built, put together. Another opportunity to add more glue.
That makes sense.
And it looks cool.
No, it does. It looks
I don't
cool.
like seeing gaps in walls. I like things to be, and I guess it's part of OCD. I've always been a little bit OCD, not over the top, but I like things to look neat and clean, and that's the customer's first impression. And you know what? A lot of customers actually wouldn't pick up on that.
Yeah.
They wouldn't see that from one RV to another.
Yeah.
But they are, you know, points of difference. And it costs more money, it's more materials, it's more labour.
Yeah.
But it's part of building a robust product that's, you know, going to last.
Well, so my guy, who is the biggest QC attention to detail guy, that was one of the first things he pointed out. And he's like, man, this thing, the caulk lines are good. Number one, he's very anal about making sure the caulk lines are perfect. He's like, if we ever need something to look perfect, we ask him to come and do it, because he'll just like make that line look perfect. And he comes in, he's like, man, they do a good job, and they do it everywhere. It's like clean, it looks neat. And he was like pointing it out to me, and I was like, oh yeah, you're right. We have other campers, you know, that we've sold over the years where it's like, they don't do that. And it's way easier to plop a cabinet down or put it against the wall and just screw it in and be done.
Yeah.
That takes time. Like that line is just perfect right above your head. That's just like a perfect line.
Yep.
But you don't see that gap in it. It just looks clean and smooth.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful.
Another important thing too is, you know, some manufacturers, everything that you see visual here will be on point. But when you actually go looking inside of cabinets and under the seats, things get a little bit ratty, or, you know, they're only laminating on one side of the actual board. We don't cut corners there, we do everything properly. So when you go looking at things inside your trailer, you know, everything's on point.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is it caulked back in there?
Yeah,
It is. That's what you were questioning.
exactly. I'm making sure.
Yeah, I'm making sure before you say that. Look at that. Like inside the cabinetry. I've been really impressed with the solar in general. Like the actual, it seems like they work. There's some that I'm kind of like, is there something not working on these
Well, this
panels?
is another thing too, right? Some manufacturers actually use solar panels that they glue to the roof of their vans.
Yeah,
They're not very functional.
yeah,
Solar panels need to have air flowing underneath them, beside them, on top of them. So the glass panels are more expensive. They're actually harder to install on a roof because you have to have the plastic cowling front and back to secure the panel above. And what we like with our solar panels is the air gap underneath.
yeah,
So you'll find that if we were to have a comparison of our glass solar panel versus a solar panel glued to the roof, our solar panel, the temperature of it is a lot less, and solar panels, as they get more heated, they lose efficiency.
yeah.
So gluing a solar panel to a roof is just a cop out and shouldn't be done on an off-road unit.
It's
We've
funny.
had hundreds of those.
Yeah, we've had hundreds of those. Yeah, OBI and Black Series started putting flat ones on. Because in the very beginning, they actually did elevated ones when they first came to the US, and they went to flat ones. Really easy to install. You just slap some glue on it and plop it on the thing.
Yeah, and they're cheaper to buy.
They were just terrible. People hated them. So we were like ripping them out. And
Another
doing
thing too, to
elevated
rip
panels.
them off, because they're Sikaflexed on,
Yeah.
it's really difficult. You're
Yeah.
like chiseling them off and breaking the panel in bits to get them off.
Oh yeah, it's not fun. That's one thing that you can immediately see a quality manufacturer, one that's solar. If it's a sticker panel, you just got to question, why are
Yeah.
you doing that? That's not.
Like anything we do, it's how do we do it the best way possible using the best materials
Yeah.
so the user has a good experience.
We're having a great experience. We plugged the Starlink into this unit. and we've been running it 24/7.
I know, it's great.
And it's like through the night, you know. You're on Australian time. I'm going to bed at 1 a.m. You guys are waking up at 4 a.m. And it's like, so we're using it.
Yeah, and we're running fridges, lights, hot water services.
Furnaces. Have you been running the furnace every night?
We have. And
yeah.
You know what's really great about this trip is the first evening, it was the air conditioner on full ball.
Yeah.
Because we were out at the
100 degrees.
KOA in 100 degrees, right? Couldn't sleep without aircon. And then here up in the mountains, we've actually got the gas furnace going.
Yeah.
So because it's just too cold.
Yeah, it dropped to 40 degrees last night, I think.
Well, we didn't even notice. We were nice and toasty.
Well, you're nice and toasty, but that's a 60-degree difference.
Yeah.
It's insane from 100 to 60 degrees in one trip. No, the furnaces have been great, just keeping us nice and warm. I got it set really dialed in the last 2 nights, and it's just like perfect. I just turned the button on.
Well, that's what I did last night. I actually changed ends so I could play with the thermostat. I got it dialed in as well.
Dialed into the right spot. Yeah, awesome. You talked about how some manufacturers will cheapen things underneath, behind things. And we already pointed out that the cabinets inside and outside are nicely caulked. And I think that's really important because I've seen cabinets coming loose and kind of separating from the floor or the walls. And believe it or not, like we've put better anchors into them and we've caulked them, and that really solved the issue. The fact that you guys do it right out of the gate is just, it's just nice for us. So we're gonna lift this cushion and see if what you're saying is true, if it really is nice underneath the cushion.
Wow, so much pressure, eh? Let's see. I have faith in my team.
Oh yeah, for sure. So let's pull this cushion out of the way. Okay, I'm already gonna give you at least 10 points for the carpeted bottom.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I mean, when you've got this sitting on there, right, in off-road situations, it causes a bit of friction. If that was just like a flat piece of ply,
yeah,
chances are you get to where you're going, this is flying off somewhere.
Yeah, it is.
So more chance of it staying where it should be.
The backrests also come with a Velcro that you can stick on.
Yes.
And then that will keep them nice and secure, which is nice. But this carpeted panel is really nice. And oh, look at that.
Carpeted on both sides.
They do it on both sides.
No point doing a half job.
And then look at this. That's the wheel well. And it's all carpeted too, as well. This is unbelievable. So I was out in a camper, but the wheel well's all metal. And I was actually in a cold spot. I was sitting on the booth and I was like, well, it feels really cold. Like my butt started feeling a little cool. And I lifted it up and it was frosted. There was like ice.
Yeah, so a couple of functions there. It's insulated, but also this is an area where people are going to store stuff. And so if that was like a steel material and you're storing things in there, and they're rattling around, the actual steel could damage the whatever you're storing there or start eating into it or tarnishing it.
Yeah.
So just having a carpet material softens things up because people will load that up with gear.
So another thing that I'm noticing as well is like all the wiring is in a corrugated plastic.
Yeah, just extra protection.
Yeah. Is that common throughout the entire trailer?
Absolutely. So all the wiring that actually runs through the aluminium RHS throughout the whole trailer is insulated.
The RHS that's the rectangular hollow stud, right?
Correct.
Okay. The whole frame is a welded rectangular hollow stud. And so when you're running wiring through there, you're saying that you put...
So the wiring is actually in corrugated tube.
Okay.
And where the actual corrugated tube goes through both sides of the stud, there's actually a rubber grommet both sides.
Okay. So that's like kind of like what you're seeing right here, something similar.
Yeah.
Where there's a rubber grommet. This is what's just mounting it to the wall.
Yep.
Or like right here, you have a rubber grommet coming through the wall.
Correct. So that would be the same sort of grommet that runs throughout the whole aluminium body.
Yeah.
The framing and the body.
Yeah. That's incredible. And all the units come with an inverter now?
They do.
Yeah, so you can run everything off grid. In the overland off-road industry, that's standard nowadays. You have to. But in the on-road camper trailers in the United States, you're not going to see an inverter until you've spent a lot of money. It might come standard in like a $100,000 camper.
Yeah,
above.
so I don't know what it's like in the US, but in Australia, you know, the ladies when they go out camping, they need their straightening iron or their curling wand or their blow dryer. I don't know if you guys have that here.
Yes, we do.
So, you know, it's important that the ladies can do what they want to do. At
Yeah.
the end of the day, they make the decision if we're allowed to have these things, right?
Yep. And you know what? I think that's what's so cool about this type of product is the outside is really rugged and manly looking, but the inside is very beautiful. Most of the ladies that walk into these trailers are ooh and ah, and it's easier to convince the wives to buy them, right?
Yes.
At that point, you can say, honey, you can sit in here all day long and enjoy the beautiful cabinetry, and then you can go out and do your manly stuff outside.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the insulation that's actually in this trailer, as we've walked from outside to inside, and we don't have the aircon running, it's actually a lot cooler in here than what it is out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just went out to grab something and come back, and it was like, I was like, ooh, it's really hot. And I stepped in here, and it's like nice breeze. These windows and doors also being open are really nice. Speaking about windows, why have you guys used the brand that you've used?
Aussie Traveller, the Eurovision windows is the best brand we can actually get our hands on. They've got the dual glass. It's a perspex or plexiglass.
Plexiglass, yeah.
It's actually made in Slovenia.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
So very good quality. We never have any problems with them. Very good on sealing. You can see with the latches, you can actually seal it in 2 different stages. You've got the little struts there that you can put them up on different angles, but they're a dual panel, so that helps with keeping the hot out or the cold out.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like in your house sometimes when you have dual glass.
Yeah.
Same thing, right?
Yeah, it's the exact same thing. No, dual pane should be a standard. A lot of American trailers still are using single pane.
Yeah, and that's
But-
just to save some costs.
Yeah, for sure. But these dual pane, they're actually really strong. They're actually 250 times stronger than glass in its same diameter.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I've actually thrown baseballs at it. You know, so I like to tell people these are fantastic windows because we've seen these on other trailers over the years, and they really are sometimes the only good thing on those trailers is those windows. But if you're out playing baseball with the kids, the odds of that window breaking is very low.
Near impossible.
Yeah, for baseball. But no, even on a serious note, tree branches, rocks flinging up, it's like glass to me in an overlander, glass is not a good idea.
Yeah,
That's
and
glass.
you know, the really cool thing about these is the way that we install them is sometimes back to front to how other manufacturers do it. And particularly for privacy. So the privacy screen comes up from the bottom. You could actually sit that there where you can actually see out, but nobody can see in.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of times they'll do it the opposite way. And so if you're...
And that's just from experience.
Yeah, and also hot air rises, right? So if you have that window open, the air can flow up and go out opposed to the opposite. So yeah, lots of experience.
Yeah, and I mean up in the corner there you got the Caframo fan that's made in Canada.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
It's a Rocco fan. Best in the market.
Oh, fantastic.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. I could sit there all day with those. The first night, when it was 100 degrees, I cranked that AC on, and then I turned the fan on, and it was blowing on me. My arm started getting cold. I was like, oh, I gotta turn it off. It was just moving the air really nicely. So this is a pretty nice trailer. It's got a lot of space in here.
Yeah.
It's a 12-foot box, lots of storage. So stay tuned. I'm gonna do a full walk around tour. This end being a insider on what sets MDC apart from everybody else out in the industry. I've said this in previous videos. When we started getting into the off-road market, and I was doing research, you guys were one of the first people I really found and researched because you guys were just putting out so much good content. Steve started doing those masterclass series, and I really appreciated it because we started having axles blowing up on us with some of our trailers, right? So I was like, man, what's going on? And so I remember watching Steve talking about the bearings, greasing them,
Yep.
servicing them,
Tightening wheel nuts.
yeah, tightening wheel nuts, everything, right? I don't think people understand the effort that it takes to actually produce that content and then put it out onto the web. It's a lot of work. It's a whole nother team member that you have to hire and employ just to give good information for people. I think ultimately it does help your business because people know that you care and people want to work with a company that cares. But that was something that really stood out to me, that you guys definitely were doing things differently from other people. You know, like a lot of times you see all these marketing videos and that's all it is. It's a marketing video. It's just like shiny, cool, look at this trailer, come and buy it. You know, when you have somebody that's actually like going into the nuts and bolts and teaching and educating and showing how to do things, how to properly use the camper, that's different. That's not the same as marketing.
Yeah, and you know, it's very similar to you guys and how you do your thorough walkthrough videos for your customers that purchase products from you guys. You know, information is power. There's a lot of things that go into these RVs and how they operate, and you know, at handover you can't give all that information at the customer in one go. They just have information overload. But if you've got those resources that they can actually go back to and look at, or if they have a particular problem, they go, hey, there was a video somewhere on the MDC YouTube channel that actually addressed that issue that they're having and how to rectify that, something simple, or it's a, you know, like a user error, or how to use this particular part. Having the resources there just gives the customer a better experience, and they may be able to work things out for themselves before they have to call your team and say, hey, I'm having a problem with this, how do I turn on the hot water? Well, here's a video on how the process to turn on the hot water.
I'm shocked in how more often than not it's a user error issue that somebody's dealing with, and it's just a simple instructional video on how to do it, and most manufacturers and dealers don't do that. Generally, what a dealership is going to do is they're going to say, I have a problem, my fridge isn't working, and they'll call in the service advisor or writer, and they'll say, okay, let me check our schedule. Yeah, we got an opening in 2 weeks. And you're like, well, I'm on a trip, or I'm going out tomorrow. Like, sorry, not much I can do for you. You got to bring it in. And I've seen this. I've been in the industry for 15 years where people take it into one of these big dealerships and they check it in 2 weeks down the road, ruin their trip, don't have a fridge, and they come in, they take it in, they charge them a diagnostic fee if it's not under warranty, right? And it's the switch. The technician goes out there and flips a switch. And it's like, man, if you could have like told me that over the phone, or like just had a video. And I think it's so powerful. It just goes to show that people care.
Yeah, and a troubleshooting type scenario, I guess. I mean, people that are buying these overlanding products are very intuitive. They're very good on the tools. Like, you know, their tow vehicle will be packed with every tool that you can think of.
Yeah.
And if you give them the information, normally they can work things out for themselves.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, this has been really fun. This has been very educational, even for myself. You know, I feel like I've been picking the brain of, you know, one of your head guys a lot, James. Shout out to James. Thanks so much. I ask him a million questions sometimes when I'm preparing for these tours because I want to know everything. But, you know, there's always a difference between when you're talking to the owner and the founder. Sometimes you've experienced some of the things from 15 years ago that you've already corrected that nobody else is experiencing at MDC right now, because, you know, you learn and you improve the product. It sounds like it's always been a constant pursuit to improve your product.
Yeah, always. We're improving year on year.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's been really good for me to actually go over these things and go, you know what, we sorted that out a very long time ago.
Yeah.
And to me, it seems like it's not that important or a little bit insignificant, but 15 years ago it was a problem that we had to overcome, and you just forget about those things. So, you know, I'm very proud of my team. We've actually come a very long way.
Yeah.
And year on year we get better and better.
Yeah. What drives that pursuit for making things better constantly?
I think it's just continual improvement. You have to get better and better, or you don't survive in this day of age.
Yeah.
And so our products now are a lot better than what they were back in the day.
Yeah.
We were selling tents on box trailers. That's where we started.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Now we do full travel trailers with big power systems and solar that can travel remote, off-grid, go anywhere, take you anywhere and take you back.
I can't emphasize enough. I definitely have felt like there's definitely a massive effort to just have such a good emphasis on quality so that you can truly escape with confidence. Like you put on all of your caravans and trucks, escape with confidence. And I'm like, you really can when you buy an MDC, I feel like.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
it's been my pleasure, Shane. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been so fun. So let's do it again.
Yep.
Okay. Bye-bye.